Daily Broadside, day 608. I've been CPR certified since I was in college. So this morning I spent 5 hours getting recerted, and I have to do every 2 years. And there was a guy in the class named Tom. And Tom was probably 58, 60 years old. I'm not sure how Tom got his certification, because Tom acted like he had never seen anything to do with cardiopulmonary resuscitation. So we're sitting there, and you got the dummies that they use, and those dummies have come a long way from what they were 30 years ago. They're a lot more advanced. When you do the chest compressions, they got a little light on the shoulder, and it says, green. 2 greens is you're doing it perfectly at a good rate and all that kind of stuff. Red is stop. You're doing it. You're either you're not deep enough, or you're going way too deep, or you're going too slow, or something's amiss. And then there's orange, where you're kind of like okay, but not good. And somewhere I'm walking over to my thing there, and we get on the floor, and I'm doing my dummy, and Tom's doing his. And Tom has pulled off the mouth. There's a plastic mouth cover that goes over it, that goes down the throat and into the part that's basically the lung that makes the thing. The breaths make the lungs inflate and all. And he is, for whatever reason, taken this off, which of course negates any kind of chance of the chest expanding and all. And he's got his mouth on this doll, right? And they wipe them down and all, but you don't put your mouth on that, and much less you don't take the plastic bladder out, because that. And so the instructor comes over, and she's like, what are you doing, Tom? And he's like, well, I was just and she's like, don't put your mouth on this. We gave you you got a little mouth thing, a little one-way valve to put on your face, so that you don't have to touch the damn doll with your lips and all this. And so he's over there, and next thing you know, I look over, and he's taking the chest off. Like, the whole chest has got this big, like, silicone, skin that folds back to where you can work on the innards and put the diaphragm in and all this stuff. And he's taking it apart, and she's starting to get a little perturbed. Like, she got a little attitude with him, which I was like, ooh, chaos, this is good. And so she's like, well, what are you doing, Tom? She's like, oh, it looks like it was broken, so I figured I would take it apart. And she's like, don't take it apart. It's fine. It's doing what it's supposed to do. Then he starts his compression. Red, 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 red. I mean, he's got no rhythm whatsoever. It's, chomp, 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 chomp. That's actually what it sounded like. And it's just red all day long. Meanwhile, I'm over there just green, double green, double green, double green, just knocking it out of the park, as they say. And then Tom starts asking stupid questions. And, they dumb down this training such that, any window licking person can pass this course if you just pay attention to the instructor and what's, the videos you're watching and all that. I mean, it can't get any simpler. You know what I mean? They've got all these little acronyms, SAM, and FAST and all this stuff. It's easy to remember. It's very simple. It's kind of like the old ABC, airway, breathing, circulation. It's very, very simple to remember. Tom's over there asking questions that just need not be asked. He's like, well, I have a question. Should we check their pulse? And I'm like, no, we don't need to check their damn pulse. What the hell's their pulse got to do with the fact their heart isn't beating? If they ain't got the heart pumping blood, they're not going to have a pulse, And so she's like, no, Tom, you don't need to, under no circumstances, check their pulse. That's never going to be a thing with CPR. You're there to do this, 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 and this. None of those are pulse related. And I don't know, man. He was just a really strange bird, and just kept asking all these stupid questions. He was this close to getting on my nerves, where he was going to need CPR before we got out of that class, because it was just extending the time we were sitting there. It's like, this stuff is not that hard, Just let's just go with the program, And Tom was very weird. And then he awkwardly, there was this young girl to his right, a couple seats down. There's only like 4 of us in the class, and her coat drops, right? And so he goes over there and picks up her coat, and it was just like the most cringy, awkward thing, and he's like, oh, your coat dropped. And she saw the coat drop, and she's going to pick it up, and he's trying to race her to it and all this. One of them dudes is like, I'm sure just a really nice guy, but just it makes everybody feel weird, you know what I mean? And then she asked a question, the instructor, that is, not the young girl. She asked a question at one point. She's like, now, if you don't have a mask, because nowadays, fortunately with CPR, this has always been my policy. I'm all about the chest compressions. I'm not putting my face on yours, because I'm not contracting like herpes just so that you can continue living, you know what I mean? So that's just where I kind of draw the line. But nowadays, they say that, as long as you keep the chest compressions good, the breaths aren't really, the rescue breathing is not as important as just keeping that blood pumping through the heart to the brain and everywhere else in the body and all that. And she says at one point, she poses the question, she says, now if you don't have a non-rebreather, a mask, or one-way valve, or any kind of protective whatever to go over their face, are you going to put your mouth on theirs? And she says it kind of like, are you going to put your mouth on their nasty mouth? Like, she poses it like that. And I'm looking over, and Tom raises his hand. He's like, oh, yes. And I'm like, oh, Tom? I think I said that out loud. I was like, Tom, like that. And I was like, and I'm looking at him, but I'm answering her. I'm like, no, we're not. Under no circumstances are we doing that, And Tom didn't really ask me any more questions after that, because I think he got a weird vibe from me, which is fine, because that was kind of the vibe I was looking to put out. But anyway, when we got to the baby infant CPR, of course, he left, and I stayed for that. And I got checked off on everything there, which was fortunate, because I can only imagine the questions that Tom would have about infant CPR, since he really couldn't wrap his little smooth brain around the concept of adult CPR. But lest you need anybody to do any chest compressions, I'm your guy. If you need somebody to do rescue breathing, somebody else will be there for you. I'll get the AED while they're pushing breath into your nasty herpes mouth.